Hi guys, it's me again. This week we're going to make some pea and potato samosas. Quite a simple recipe. There's a little bit of pastry making and obviously making the filling. So it's quite a fun recipe to make, so I'm hoping you're all going to try it. It's been really great to see all your other recipes. I've loved seeing your pictures of your Victoria sponges and your sweet and sour, which lots of you fortunately made. So we're going to get started with the pastry first. So I'll just turn the video off again and we'll get started in a minute. Okay, so like I said, we're going to start with the pastry. In my bowl, I've got my plain flour. There's 300 grams in here. So I'm just going to add some baking powder. Okay, we just need 1/4 teaspoon. Okay, just make sure it's level. In that goes. And then just a pinch of salt, just for a bit of flavor. Okay, and then if you have a palette knife, just give it all a bit of a mix. If you don't have a palette knife, you can just use a dinner knife, okay? So into here, I'm just going to add my oil. Okay, I'm just going to use the rubbing in method now. So just use my fingers. Okay, and just rub the oil into the flour. And we want it to look like breadcrumbs. Okay, so it's the same method you would use when you're making normal pastry using butter. Okay, so just rubbing it with the tips of your fingertips, and you don't want to have too many big lumps in there. Okay, now who can remember what this science is going on here? Okay, remember all the science words? So this one is shortening. Even though we're using oil, it's still shortening. Okay, because oil is still a fat. And it will give us a slightly crumbly pastry. Not as short and crumbly as a normal short crust though. Okay, so remember, if you want to see if there's any lumps left, you just give the bowl a shake, and that looks pretty good to me. Okay, so I'm just going to use some cold water and just make a well. And I've got 75 mils of cold water in there. I've put most of it in. I've just saved a little bit back just in case. Okay, and just use your palette knife or knife, dinner knife. Just bring everything together. Remember, you want that mixture to turn into a dough. And I can see I'm going to need a bit more water. Okay, now I'm just going to get my hands in there now. And that way you'll get definitely a better idea if you need more water, and I definitely do. In fact, I'm just going to grab some more water. And add some more in. I've got quite a bit dry. I'm just going to move that aside. And it's okay to use your hands now. Okay, what you want is for all of the dry flour to come away from the bowl and for it all to turn into a dough. So I'll just add the rest of that dough in now. And you don't want it too soft, okay, because we want to roll this pastry out. Okay, and just use your dough to clean the bowl. Okay, and now I would just put it onto your worktop, obviously a clean worktop, and just knead it together. Okay, so you want it soft, but not too soft. Okay. So I'm just going to put this back into my bowl. And we don't have to worry about kneading it too much, okay? It's not like bread. We don't want the gluten to be developed too much. And I just have a little bit of oil left in there. So I'll put that and put my dough back in, and that will keep it from sticking. And then I've just got damp tea towel, which I'm just going to put on top, and I'm going to leave that for about half an hour. And we're going to move on to the filling now, okay? Okay, so we're going to start with the filling. In this pan, I've got my potatoes, and they're just about ready, they're just about cooked. Okay, so they've been cooking for about 8 to 10 minutes. You need to make sure you've cut them into cubes, about 2 centimeter cubes. And obviously you can check to see if they're done. You can see that's definitely cooked. But I'm just going to add in my peas. Okay, these are just frozen peas. And I'm going to let that boil together just for another minute. And I'm just going to move it on to my other cooker. So while that's cooking, we're just going to get the rest of the filling ready. So in my pan, I'm going to add my 2 tablespoons of oil. Okay, and we want that to heat up a little bit. Okay, just spread it around. Okay, so you want it on a high-ish heat right now. And just give it a minute or so just to heat up. Well, probably not quite a minute, but definitely a few seconds. Okay, and what we're going to add is our cumin seeds first. And when I add the cumin seeds in, we want them to sizzle. Now, if you don't have cumin seeds, okay, so these are cumin seeds. If you don't have cumin seeds, or you don't want to buy them, that's absolutely fine. If you've got ground cumin, you can definitely use it, but don't add it in now, okay? Because we're adding the cumin seeds in because they're whole spices, and we just want them to sizzle a little bit, and that just flavors the oil, okay? So you can see that's sizzling now and starting to pop. And we're just going to turn it down a bit, and now I'm going to add my onion. Okay, and now you want to definitely have your heat turned down. But you want to have a little bit of sizzle to the onion. What we want to do now is actually just let it soften, but we don't want too much color on them. Okay, you don't have to stir all the time. While that's just cooking, I'm going to turn off my potatoes and peas and just drain them. Okay, so you can see I've just drained that in a sieve or colander, and I'll just put that aside. And we'll just let our onions keep cooking. Okay, you want your onions to cook for a good 5 to 8 minutes here. We want them nice and soft, like I said, on a low heat, and we don't want a lot of color on them. Okay, now you probably don't want to be watching onions cooking for 8 minutes, so I'll stop it now, and then we'll come back to the onions when we're ready for the next step. Okay, so you can see that my onions have definitely cooked a lot more. They've got a little bit of brownness to them. I'll probably cook them a bit too long, but that's absolutely fine. Okay, so what I'm going to add now is all of the fresh spices like ginger, chili, and garlic. So this is green chili, which are finely chopped. Okay, I've added a whole one, but if you don't want it too spicy, this is quite a mild one. It's quite one of those big green chilies. If you've got one of the thinner green chilies, then you probably need less, because actually those are hotter. Some fresh ginger there. Okay, and that was just grated, and a clove of garlic. Okay, and these three ingredients are used in Indian cooking a lot. If you have this mixture right here, you can turn this into many different dishes. Okay, so I'm just gonna let those cook for a little bit, okay? Because what you want to do here is just let all this cook so you don't get that raw taste of garlic and ginger and chili. Okay, so now I'm gonna add my dry spices. In here, I've got some ground coriander. And if you were going to be using ground cumin instead of the cumin seeds, you would add that in at this point. Okay, and here I've got some garam masala, which is basically a mixture of different spices ground up together. And again, this whole mixture right here, you know, if you added some chicken into here now, and then let that cook for a while, added some tomato sauce or coconut milk or something, you'd have quite a nice curry. You could add turmeric if you wanted, to give you that nice yellow color. And again, turmeric is another key ingredient in Indian cooking, but these are all those key ingredients that you would use. Okay, and again, you want to let this cook for a few minutes just to get rid of the rawness and powderiness of the spices. Okay, so I'm just going to cut that short a bit, but at home, give that a bit of time. So now I'm going to add my potatoes and my peas. Okay, now remember this mixture is cooked. So what we really want to do at this stage is just let everything get coated in the spices. So mix it well. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is actually just crush the potatoes a bit. Now I don't want to mash, okay? So this is why your potatoes need to be cooked really well. I don't want to mash them completely, just want to crush them a bit. Okay, because the chunks are too big at the moment to make the samosa filling, okay? So just give each piece a bit of a crush. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Now, key ingredient is salt at this stage. Especially potatoes need a good amount of seasoning. So you just need to add some salt to taste. And with salt, it's always best to add a little bit, and then you can always add some more. Okay, mix it all together. I'm going to add juice of half a lemon. Okay, again, works really well with potatoes. And I'm actually going to turn my cooker off at this stage. And then finally, I've got my chopped coriander. I love fresh coriander, so I'm going to add quite a bit in. But you can add in however much you like. If you really hate coriander, obviously you don't need to add it. But it does add a really nice fresh flavor to the mixture. Okay, so that is the filling done. Make sure it's all mixed well. And what we're going to move on to now is actually the fun bit, where we're going to make the samosas and make the pocket and fill them, and then we're going to bake them in the oven. Okay? Okay, we're ready to make our pastry. Okay, so I've got half of my dough here, and you will use the other half, but we're just going to start with half, just makes it a bit easier to work with. So just lightly flour my work surface. Okay, just give it a quick knead, make it nice and smooth. Okay, and now what we want to do is just roll it out. Okay, and obviously if it's quite sticky, make sure you're adding flour, but don't add too much. Okay, we don't want to change the consistency of the dough too much. Now at this stage, you're going to roll it quite thick. So approximately half a centimeter to a centimeter thick. Okay, I'm just going to use my cutter. And this is about a 6 to 7 centimeter cutter, whatever you have. You can use a glass if you don't have a cutter. Okay, so just cut those out. That extra dough, I'll pop them back in the bowl. Okay, move those, 3 of those aside. And now we're just going to roll this piece to about sort of 15 to 18 centimeters. Okay, you want it quite thin. And we're actually going to make an oval shape rather than a circle. So you can start off making a circle, but then eventually make it into an oval. Okay, like so. Right, so you can see it's nice and thin. Just going to cut it in half. So this one piece will make 2 samosas. So now you put your piece of pastry so the straight line is at the top, and then you bring this piece over like so. Okay, and then I've just got a bit of water here. Okay, just going to lightly put some water on the edges there, and then bring the other side over, and we want that to stick together. And what you're looking for is kind of this to over, you don't want it completely to the edge there, okay? You want to see this bit, and make sure that's stuck together quite well. Okay, now you turn it over, put it in your hand. This is the slightly tricky bit here. So you take your cooled down mixture, okay? You need to make sure it has cooled down. And make sure you try and get as much in there as possible. Okay, get it down to the bottom there. Okay, so push in the mixture, because I try and get as much as possible. Okay, and now what you need to do with that larger side, with the round bit, you just want to put a pleat in it, like so. Okay, so just put a little pleat, and then we use our water again. Okay, make sure you go all the way to the edges there, and then we just join it together like that. Okay, can you see you've got that pleat, which is fine. Now make sure you're really pressing that down well. If you're not 100% sure that that's not going to break open, you can always use a fork just to press it down, but it should stay together. And then what I will do is just pop that onto my baking tray. I've got a liner on here, but you can always just use your baking tray. Put a light bit of oil on there, and that will be fine. Okay, then what you're going to do is just lightly oil the samosa. Sorry, forgot to get the oil for that. Okay, so I've got a little bit of oil in here, and I've got a pastry brush. So we just brush that up, not too much. Okay, and that will just give it a bit of color. And then we do the same with the rest. Okay, and then that will all go into your oven. Make sure you've preheated it to 180. And it's gonna go in for about 45 minutes, but just keep an eye, check after about half an hour. You might wanna turn them over and just check. If they're turning too brown, then obviously either turn the heat down. The mixture in there is cooked, so we don't have to worry about that. We just need to make sure that that pastry cooks. Okay, so we'll have a look at them when they're done. Okay, so here's the finished result, guys. You can see they're nice and golden brown. They have been in the oven for about 40 minutes, so they do need a bit of time to cook. Make sure you don't skimp on that cooking time, because otherwise your pastry will be undercooked. Hopefully you'll all have a go at making this. I'm serving mine with a bit of tamarind chutney, which I've got in the cupboard. You can use mango chutney or ketchup or whatever dip you like, really. Keep an eye out for the bake-off competition that's coming up, and I'd like to see as many of you entering as possible. So I'm looking forward to seeing those. Okay, guys, take care. See you soon.